Jiang Shu and I were reborn at the same time. In my past life, I was consort Rong, the most favored woman in his harem. Even in death, I was buried with him in the imperial mausoleum. But this time, after waiting 3 years, the name on the palace selection list belonged to my legitimate younger sister. It hit me like a bolt of lightning. This life, he had chosen to avoid me. Later, I obeyed my father's arrangement and entered into an engagement. After the palace banquet, General Xie gently lifted me into his carriage to ride together. Behind us, the always calm and arrogant emperor secretly clenched his fists. In my past life, from the moment I entered the palace, I had been showered with Jiang Shu's favor. He personally made kites for me to play with, and when I was ill, he never left my side, not even taking off his robes to rest. Our relationship was like that of an ordinary couple. On my deathbed, I held his hand and smiled happily. Your Majesty, in the next life, I want to meet you earlier than the Empress. His eyes glistened with moisture as he hugged me tightly and replied, Ahung, in the next life, I will marry you as my wife. In death, I was buried with him in the imperial mausoleum. He had given me a unique, unparalleled love. I thought the only regret was that we had never had children. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at 16. This life, Jiang Shu was still the crown prince. Not yet ascended to the throne, I had my father invite a wandering doctor from Jiangnan to check my pulse early on. He shook his head helplessly. You've been as strong as an ox since childhood. How could you have a hidden illness? I frowned and retorted, I do. I want the Jiangnan doctor to feel my pulse. During my more than 10 years in the harem, the imperial physicians had said that I had damaged my foundation in my youth, making it difficult to conceive. I had been both angry and anxious, unable to bear Jiang Shu a child. He had several princes and princesses with other consorts, but none with me. Even though Jiang Shu had always comforted me, the regret lingered. This life, only having a child with him would make it perfect. When the Jiangnan doctor arrived, my younger sister Rongjun looked at me worriedly. Are you unwell? I awkwardly chose to remain silent. She seemed to be used to my coldness. After feeling my pulse, the wandering doctor stared at me thoughtfully. Young lady, your pulse is strong and vigorous, even more so than that of ordinary people. My younger sister let out a soft laugh. I knew the doctor was praising my robust health, that there was no hidden illness at all. But why had the imperial physicians in my past life said I had damaged my foundation and could not easily conceive? I refused to believe the wandering doctor. I begged my father to find a divine doctor. Even arranging for the maids around me to fetch doctors from other regions, my father was helpless against my actions. The doctor already said you have no hidden illness, why won't you believe it? I held a folk remedy for strengthening the body that my maid had just found. Father, this matter is very important to me. As I spoke, my voice trembled with tears. My father froze, sighed, and took the folk remedy from my hand. Don't take this. I'll go to the imperial hospital in the palace to beg for a proper prescription for you. I instantly cheered up. Father is the best to me. My father looked at me fondly. I'll go right now. As soon as my father left, I went to my younger sister's courtyard. She was resting on a beauty couch. When she saw me, a look of surprise flashed across her face. Sister, what brings you here? I remembered that in my past life, I had inexplicably hated this sister, but in the end, when I was in trouble in the palace, she was the first to help me find a way. Later, when she married, her husband was not a good man. When she died, she was nothing but skin and bones. I just want to tell you, don't rush to marry. At the moment, my sister was 15, having just had her coming-of-age ceremony, and many matchmakers had already come to propose. My sister covered her mouth and laughed. All right, I had to choose a good husband for her before I entered the palace, so she could live a safe and smooth life. Come with me to the hairpin flower banquet in a few days. At that time, many young talents would attend, and Jiang Shu would definitely be there. This time, I wanted to gain his favor early. Even entering the East Palace as a concubine first would be fine. Thinking of this, I unconsciously curved my lips into a smile. In the evening, my father brought back a prescription for strengthening the body and advised me, "This medicine is very bitter. You don't have to drink it if you don't want to." I shook my head. I'll drink it every day. A maid brewed the medicine and handed it to me, under my father's gaze. I drank it all in one gulp. The bitterness of the medicine burned in my mouth. I forced out a tear and swallowed it back. Father. I finished drinking it, but he turned his face away, not daring to look at me. I had been afraid of bitterness since I was a child. So my father had always forced me to exercise with him, avoiding medicine whenever possible. His voice was slightly choked. Then I'll leave first. I watched my father's departing figure and instructed the maid to let me drink the medicine 3 times a day. On the day of the hairpin flower banquet, I specially put on a crabapple red jacket that Jiang Shu liked. Waiting happily to meet him, my sister beside me noticed and asked curiously, "Sister, what are you giggling about?" I pressed my lips. You wouldn't understand. When we arrived at the Imperial Garden, peonies and Chinese herbaceous peonies were in full bloom. Young ladies from various families gathered to chat. My sister grabbed my sleeve in fear. "Sister," I held her hand. "Don't be afraid, no one will eat you." I looked around, but there was no sign of Jiang Shu. I felt a little disappointed. Today's hairpin flower banquet was relatively relaxed, different from the usual rigid etiquette. I heard it was a concubine selection banquet prepared by the Empress for Crown Prince Jiang Shu. Suddenly, a sneer interrupted my thoughts. Whose silly girl is this, trying to imitate others like Dongsha? I followed the voice and saw a young lady wearing a crabapple red jacket standing beside the speaker. She turned to look at me. The smile on my lips froze instantly. It was the future crown princess, Lin Jinran. Clearly, in my past life. Neither she nor I had attended this banquet. This time, not only had she come, but she was also wearing the color of clothes that Jiang Shu liked. Just like me, my hands unconsciously clenched into fists. Lin Jinran smiled and nodded at me. But all I could think about was whether she had been reborn too. More and more people noticed that Lin Jinran and I were wearing the same color jackets. Several sarcastic remarks reached my ears. "Miss Lin looks much better in it, elegant and dignified, unlike Miss Rong, who's trying to be clever in a silly way. Tell me about it. This Miss Rong is really stupid, dressing like a coquette begging for favor." I had never suited crabapple red clothes. At this moment, I felt like a clown being mocked. I was overwhelmed with embarrassment. My sister deliberately spilled a cup of tea on my skirt. "Sister, your clothes are wet. Let's change into another one." My face pale, I followed a maid to the side hall to change into an outfit that suited me. The mirror reflected the newly tidied me. Jiang Shu had once said that he loved my eyes, slightly upturned at the corners, clear and lively. After changing clothes, I hurried back to the garden. A burst of cheers and laughter rang out. Several young masters from noble families had arrived. I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure from afar. Overjoyed, I rushed forward, only to hear Lin Jinran's shy voice. "Crown Prince, this is against the rules." My footsteps stopped. What came into view was Jiang Shu plucking a gorgeous peony and tucking it into Lin Jinran's hair bun. A surge of sourness welled up in my heart. The two looked at each other, their eyes excluding everyone else. They were a perfect match, talented and beautiful. "This peony suits you very well, Miss Jinran." The corners of Jiang Shu's lips curved slightly. In my past life, he had smiled at me with the same affection and helplessness when we played together. I clenched my handkerchief tightly and fled instinctively. Lin Jinran deliberately called out to me. Jiang Shu looked at me, his eyes having returned to calm clarity. His voice was warm and clear. "Miss Rong, you dropped your handkerchief." I flusteredly picked up the handkerchief and walked out of the garden. When I calmed down and looked closely at the brocade handkerchief in my hand, I panicked again. I had no idea whose handkerchief it was. Thinking this, I raised my hand and threw it into the lake. Just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, a playful voice came from behind. "Why did you throw my handkerchief into the lake, young lady?" I turned around, and our eyes met. He froze for a moment, his fingers curling unconsciously, a faint blush spreading across his bronze-colored face. I had no intention of explaining to him, so I ran away in a hurry. When I returned to the banquet again, I could not find Jiang Shu nor Lin Jinran. In my past life, when I entered the palace, Lin Jinran had just given birth to a prince, but due to postnatal weakness, I could only see her occasionally. At that time, I had already been deeply favored by Jiangsu. Spoiled and arrogant, never taking her seriously. But now, sister, hearing my sister's voice, I suddenly came back to my senses. I'm tired, let's go first. But I still wanted to wait for Jiangsu a little longer. My sister's face gradually paled, so I had to take her hand and leave first. After that, I attended every banquet, but never once did I see Jiangsu. Perhaps he was busy with official duties and had no time to attend. I secretly comforted myself and persuaded my father to support Jiangsu. In the autumn of that year, Jiangsu ascended the throne. Next spring, I eagerly await the draft list. But then I heard, there will be no talent show this year. Within a few days, the emperor issued an edict. Lin is virtuous and gentle, her nature pure and prudent. She is hereby installed as empress, to reign over the inner court. The emperor even personally shot a pair of wild geese and sent them to the Lin family. Just like in my previous life, Lin Jin became the empress. Even though I knew Jiangsu hadn't been reborn like me and couldn't fulfill the promises of our past life, seeing the sachet I embroidered for him in my palm, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. In a fit of pique, I cut the sachet to pieces, the spices falling to the ground little by little, and then suddenly regretted it. In my past life, I didn't enter the palace until next year. Perhaps I can wait a little longer. I picked up the scrap cloth, wiped away my tears, and continued sewing. A drop of blood was pricked from my fingertip. Father knocked on the door and came in. I lowered my head in a fluster. Hunger, you can start looking at potential suitors now. I choked out a refusal. Wait a little longer. Maybe next year I'll be able to enter the palace and become a concubine. Father widened his eyes, thinking I had gone mad. What's so good about entering the palace? I retorted softly. But I just like emperors. Jiangsu is good to me in every way. He didn't say a word, pondered for a long time, and then slowly said, Hunger, father is selfish. I don't want you to enter the palace. I just want you to stay by my side, so that even if you marry, you can come back and visit often. I looked into his eyes. My heart was suddenly touched. My mother passed away early, and my father took care of my younger sister and me all by himself. Even my maternal grandparents' family advised him to remarry, but he was afraid that we would be mistreated, so he never did. Dad, he waved his hand, as long as you like it, Daddy will help you. The following year, Jiangsu's eldest son was born and was made crown prince after 100 days. I was stunned for a long time when I heard the news. At this moment, his harem still only had Lin Jinran. In my previous life, after entering the palace, Jiangsu favored me almost exclusively. Many concubines complained to the empress that I monopolized the emperor's affection. Jiangsu ignored the advice and continued to visit my palace to play with me, favoring me alone as always. I heard from my father that ministers at court were advising the emperor to expand the harem. But a month had passed. Jiangsu went to Tongju to oversee flood control. Several months passed. Jiangsu predicted the plague in Danju in advance, and had already taken precautionary measures in the city, thus avoiding a great disaster. Everyone praised him, saying his merit was as great as creation itself, blessing all living beings. This year he was busy with state affairs and still did not hold the imperial selection. In the third year, when the peonies were in full bloom, Father, overjoyed, told me, Hunger, the list for the selection has come down, our Rong family is included. I ran over eagerly. Father, let me see it quickly. I hastily took it and opened it. But the name that appeared was my sister Rong Zhan's. The midday sun suddenly became blinding and scorching. The list in my hand fell to the ground, and my heartbeat paused for a moment. How could it be my sister's name? Tears rolled down uncontrollably. Father, seeing my reaction, first smiled secretly for a moment. Then comforted me. It's better not to enter palace. I've already found a good match for Hanger. Dad, let me go into the palace for the imperial selection in place of my sister. Father frowned. Nonsense. The imperial palace is full of intrigue. If you go there, you might lose your life. It was the first time in his life he had reprimanded me. I will also do everything I can to make sure your sister is not selected. But soon, more bad news arrived. Jiangsu decreed that this would be the final draft, and he would not replenish the harem in the future. The color drained from my face instantly. All indications suggest that he was also reborn, from the moment he called me Miss Rong at the banquet, to later achieving feats that did not belong to him in my previous life. But this time, he chose to avoid me and forget his promise, making me wait for a full 3 years, only to find my sister's name in the end. The tonic sent by the little maid was knocked over by me. I held back my tears and grasped father's hand. Father, I will marry. Of all those who entered the palace to be chosen, only my younger sister remained. I don't know if Jiang Shu did it on purpose. Father sighed, resignedly saying, as long as your sister is well, that's all that matters. There are only 2 imperial concubines in the palace now, so there will be less infighting. Your sister is clever, too, no need to worry too much. After a pause, he continued, the man engaged to you will also attend the banquet in a few days. Go take a peek at him. If he's not suitable, we'll break off the engagement. I snapped off a twig and quietly asked, what's his name? Siet Songnan. The wedding date is set for next month. I attended the banquet again, perhaps because I learned that Jiang Shu had also been reborn. Seeing him smiling so brightly in his high position, I couldn't help but feel it was hypocritical. And then I left the palace again. Father said that the man was a young general, broad-shouldered and bare-waisted, with a leopard's head and ringed eyes, quite not handsome. I paced back and forth anxiously. A low but rough voice came from behind. Miss Rongheng. I lifted my eyes to look. Wasn't he the one whose handkerchief I threw into the lake before? You, he suddenly smiled, warmth touching his brow. I'm your fiancé, Siet Songnan. I murmured his name softly, then turned and left. My father, being a scholar, always held a bias against military officers. Siet Songnan was clearly quite handsome. Back at the banquet, I didn't see my younger sister, and I felt a little worried. The morning passed in a daze. I had no heart to listen to their jokes. Suddenly, a small palace maid walked up to me, curtsying. Consort Rome wishes to see you. I followed the palace maid out of the banquet and headed towards another palace. This road was incredibly familiar. It was my empress's residence in my previous life. When I saw clearly that the person on the seat was Lin Jinran, I still quietly clenched my palms. The gilded peony hairpin she wore on her head was the token of love that Jiang Shu gave me himself in my previous life. The other half of the hairpin under his pillow in the Taichen Hall. I pursed my lips. Lin Jinran told me to come forward. A mocking glint flashed in her eyes. Is your nickname a Heng? I was stunned for a moment. In the past, only Jiang Shu would call me by this name, not even my father. I denied it outright. That's not my nickname. Is that so? But yesterday, His Majesty stayed in my palace and recited a Heng's name. My pupils contracted sharply, and I slowly knelt on the ground. Perhaps your highness misheard. She is now the powerful empress. If she were to secretly undermine her sister, I dare not think about it. She nodded softly, lowering her gaze as she added, my daughter will be getting married next month. She toyed with the jade bracelet in her hand, then it accidentally slipped from her palm and fell. A crisp shattering sound echoed in the silent palace. This was a gift from the emperor himself. Why has Miss Rong broken it? Go kneel at the palace gate for 2 hours. I gritted my teeth and walked to the gate to kneel. The midday sun is the most intense. I vaguely remembered that in my previous life, after Lin Jinran passed away, Jiang Shu did not handle any memorials for the entire day. Clutching a strand of her hair tightly in his hand, he held me in his arms as he fell asleep in the middle of the night. Yet in his dreams, he murmured, Jinran, it is I who have failed you. It is all my fault. Jinran, Jinran, I regret it. Waking up, there were still tears in the corners of my eyes. But I was carefree and never took it to heart, even secretly rejoicing at Lin Jinran's death, thinking I would be the next empress. Until my death, I only held the title of imperial concubine. And the empress position remained vacant, so it was, his greatest love has always been the queen. It was never crabapple red that Jiang Shu liked, it was Lin Jinran's favorite color. The favor he showered on me in my past life was an illusion, and my younger sister was just a decoy in this one. He knew I was simple-minded and hated my sister, so he deliberately put her name on the palace selection list to make me resentful. My body had always been strong since childhood. I'd never been injured before entering the palace. After being reborn, Every doctor I consulted said I had no hidden illnesses, and he had fathered children before. After Lin Jinran's death, no more princes or princesses were born in the harem. Could it be that he had been giving me contraceptives all along to clear the way for Lin Jinran's children? All medicine has 3 parts poison. No wonder I died in my 30s in my past life, and after my death. He hypocritically buried me with him. I looked up at the familiar red walls and green tiles of the palace, laughing as tears streamed down my face. Jiangsu had never loved me. He had schemed everything for Lin Jinran, yet couldn't even let me have a child with him. I knelt there for so long that my legs went numb and lifeless, a sharp pain piercing my knees. A flash of bright yellow fabric passed by my side. I struggled to look up. It was Jiangsu, but he didn't glance at me. Striding straight into the palace hall, the sound of their laughter drifted out. "Your Majesty, Miss Rong broke the bracelet you gave me, so I punished her to kneel for an incense stick's time. She was acting coquettishly." Jiangsu stroked her hair affectionately. "She's always been spoiled, an occasional punishment won't hurt." Lin Jinran clung tightly to his hand. "But it seems Miss Rong is already engaged, with the wedding next month." The smile on Jiangsu's face froze slightly. "Oh, the time is up, Miss Rong. You may leave now." I tried to straighten my knees, but the stabbing numbness in my feet made me fall back down. My hands hit the ground, and small stones scraped the palms, biting my lip. I struggled repeatedly before finally standing up, a dense pain throbbing in my knees, threatening to make me kneel again. In the end, a maid from my younger sister's side helped me up. From now on, I would never pester him again. I limped toward the palace gate. The dusk stretched my shadow long. But I didn't notice when another shadow appeared behind me. I wiped away my tears and saw a figure standing ahead. It was Siet Songnan. His expression was solemn. But a flash of distress crossed his eyes. He hurried to my side and lifted me up in his arms. I whispered his name. "Grievances, Siet Songnan." He said nothing, carrying me into a carriage to ride together. Behind us, the always calm and arrogant emperor secretly clenched his fists. Once inside the carriage, I fell silent. Siet Songnan pulled out a bottle of bruise ointment from somewhere, about to apply it to me. I suddenly grabbed his hand, startled. His palms were large and broad, with rough calluses on his fingers. Men and women should keep their distance. He let out a low laugh. "I've grown rough in the military camp. I acted too hastily and forgot. My apologies." I let go of his hand, but the sharp pain in my knees made my face pale even more. Perhaps it looked worse than it was, because Siet Songnan spoke again. "I'm sorry for overstepping." Then he lifted my leg and placed it on his lap. Applying the ointment to my knees through my undergarments and gently rubbing, I stiffened all over instantly. His palms were scorching hot, the warmth seeping through continuously. "You," Siet Songnan rubbed carefully. I lifted my eyes and looked elsewhere. "If not treated promptly, it may leave a chronic ailment that aches faintly on rainy days." Listening to him, I didn't object further. The sharp pain in my knees gradually eased. I glanced at him in surprise. Managing only 4 words, "You're really skilled." He lowered his eyes, continuing to rub, but his movements grew much gentler. "Are you satisfied with me?" I froze, not understanding, thinking he was asking about his massage technique. I nodded eagerly. "Satisfied, very satisfied." He smiled, his eyes shining like stars. "In my family, my parents are in good health, and I have a young brother. If you marry me, you won't have to manage the household affairs. Whenever you want to visit your family, I'll accompany you." So that's what he meant. I bit my lip, deciding not to refuse the marriage. "All right." He suddenly pressed a little harder, and I let out a soft whimper. "Siet Songnan, be gentle." He grinned foolishly and agreed. When we arrived at the Rong mansion, Siet Songnan carried me out of the carriage. I clung tightly to his neck, my nose accidentally brushing his cheek. His Adam's apple rolled twice. "Miss Rongheng." I turned my head and saw Jiangsu standing not far behind. He stood straight, his calm face showing no emotion, but he was twisting a jade pendant in his hand repeatedly, a habit he had when flustered. But he didn't seem to realize that I had been reborn too. I looked away and entered the Rong mansion. When my father heard from the doctor about the bruises on my knees, he was so angry that he wrote a memorial to impeach the empress. That's going too far. I'm sorry, hunger. I made you suffer. My father covered his face with his sleeve, secretly wiping away tears. Father, it's not your fault, it was my own foolishness for not seeing through people's hearts. Siet Songnan bowed to him. Master Rong, please rest assured, I applied medicine to Miss Rongheng before we returned. My father glanced at him. You should go home soon. Siet Songnan looked at me, his ears turning red, and handed me the bruise ointment. Once a day, and you'll recover soon. I looked at him directly and thanked him. Thank you earlier. Otherwise, if I had returned home alone, I might really have been left with a chronic ailment. It's nothing. I'll take my leave now, sir. He smiled foolishly, his tall figure disappearing into the night. My father sighed and asked cautiously, what do you think of him? He's very good. Father, I'm willing to marry him. My father straightened his back. He's 21 now, just the right age. His family is simple. No intrigue or infighting. I let out a muffled hum. What about your sister? Your sister has always been decisive. She sent a letter earlier saying everything is fine, no need to worry. In my past life, I had survived more than 10 years in the harem solely because of Jiang Shu's favor. Even when framed, he would unconditionally take my side and never punish me. If I had really had to fight for myself, I would have died a terrible death long ago. Hunger, rest well. Early the next morning, Siet Songnan's younger brother, Siet Songyu, arrived with a gift. He looked somewhat like Siet Songnan, but his smile was sweet. Sister Rongheng, my brother asked me to secretly give you this. I opened it. It was a pair of concentric locks. My brother heard about this in the military camp. If you don't like it, I'll take it back. I ruffled Siet Songyu's hair. Go tell him no, I like it very much. His eyes widened. Really? I nodded. Picking up a pastry and stuffing it into his hand, it's delicious. Just then, a servant from my father's side ran over in a panic. Young lady, His Majesty is here. Master says you should stay in your room and not come out. I understand, I won't go out. At this moment, I didn't want to see Jiang Shu's face. I pulled Siet Songyu to continue eating pastries. He was a chatterbox, constantly telling stories about his brother's embarrassing moments. I laughed loudly. Sister Rongheng, once you become my sister-in-law, I can tell you more. All right, Sister Rongheng is going to be my sister-in-law. Before he could finish speaking, a tall, straight figure appeared in our sight. Jiang Shu had entered. The pastry in my hand fell to the ground. For a moment, I panicked and picked it up. Pulling Siet Songyu to bow, your servant greets your majesty. He ordered someone to take Siet Songyu away. Only Jiang Shu and I remained in the room. Jiang Shu looked at me seriously. It was the Empress's fault yesterday. I've punished her. That no longer matters, your majesty. He froze, opening his palm to reveal a pair of delicate earrings. A reward. I took them with feigned joy. He seemed to let out a sigh of relief. It was a deliberate test. He still remembered that earrings were what I hated most. In my past life, after entering the palace, a cat raised by Consort De had scratched my earlobe until it bled. And I had never worn earrings again. If that's the case, I'll take my leave. I curtsied and saw him off. As soon as he left, I told my maid to pawn the earrings and use the money to buy candies and melon seeds to share with everyone. As the wedding approached, I never stepped out again, focusing on embroidering the intimate clothing I was preparing to give to Siet Songnan. Siet Songyu had secretly told me these measurements. I really didn't expect him to be so narrow-waisted, broad-shouldered, long-legged, and long-armed. On the wedding day, an 8-bearer palanquin, with gongs and drums sounding, I entered the Xie residence in a daze. My heart was beating so fast when I got out of the sedan. Siet Songnan held my hand and whispered in my ear, "Don't be nervous," but the sweat on his palm was even more than mine. A smile played at the corner of my lips, and I gave a soft "Oh, oh, oh." The boss is getting married. The guests erupted into a hubbub. I relaxed as well, holding the silk fan and stepping into the wedding hall. The guest on the right was very quiet. I took a curious peek. It was actually Jiang Shu. Why would he be here? Jiang Shu took a sip of tea. His gaze suddenly meeting mine in the air. I shifted my gaze, looking towards Siet Songnan beside me. He looked very nervous, his smile stiff, slowly cupping his hands towards me, stepping forward to gently remove the fan, revealing my face. Today I'm wearing my favorite plum blossom pearl makeup. The breath above my head paused for a moment, then became rapid again. I looked up at him with a smile. Siet Sungnan pursed his lips, his eyes shimmering with tears. Father looked at us with a gratified expression. The MC called out loudly, "First bow to heaven and earth." Out of my sight, Jiang Shu stood up abruptly, staring intently at the plum blossom applique on my forehead. He finally realized that I had also been reborn. I always habitually draw a 6-petaled plum blossom applique, but with blue stamens dotting the center. I also regretted that I had forgotten that the previous version of myself had begged Jiang Shu to draw a plum blossom design on my forehead once. He also made fun of me, saying who would have blue stamens, "You're one of a kind." During the wedding ceremony, Jiang Shu had already crushed the teacup in his hand, and blood mixed with tea dripped down his fingertips. The eunuch next to him immediately noticed something was wrong, and his sharp voice stood out in the midst of all the laughter and cheers. "Your Majesty, you're bleeding." The scene suddenly fell silent. Everyone was as quiet as a cicada in winter, except for Siet Songnan, who cheerfully took my hand. "Now that we've completed the wedding ceremony, my dear wife, allow me to escort you to the bridal chamber." As soon as Siet Songnan finished speaking, a mocking smile appeared on the corner of Jiang Shu's lips, and his deep eyes churned with emotion as he said, word by word, "Rong Heng, you have deceived me so thoroughly." I pretended not to hear and went into the new house. Siet Songnan sat opposite me, stuttering, "I'll go out and greet the guests first. I'll be back in a while. I've prepared some pastries in the room, and the little maid will bring you your favorite food later." He fidgeted with his sleeves, looking lost. I nodded and then secretly kissed his cheek. Siet Songnan turned completely red and hurriedly ran out. "See you in a bit." The noise outside started again. The little maid came in and told me about the situation outside. "The general has been plied with a lot of wine and is in high spirits." I picked up a piece of pastry and ate it. "Madam, when do you think that lord will leave?" "She's talking about Jiang Shu, right?" I finished the pastry as if nothing had happened. Let him be. The night enveloped the outside, and the noise had lessened considerably. Siet Songnan walked over with steady steps, seeing that I had already eaten quite a bit. He visibly breathed a sigh of relief. "Nyangzi, the nuptial wine." After I drank it, a blush spread across his face, making my mouth dry. "I'll go take a bath first." Thinking of what was to come, I felt inexplicably nervous and swallowed hard. Half an hour later, Siet Songnan returned to the inner room wearing a single layer of clothing. I also removed my jewelry, washed up, and sat by the bed, listening to the thump, thump, thump of my heartbeat. "You." He already held my hand and leaned down to kiss me, lightly, a tentative taste, then slowly deepening the pressure, with no skill to speak of. "Candle." Perhaps my tone carried a hint of coquetry, because Siet Songnan paused for a moment, then got up to extinguish the candles, leaving only one lamp by the bed. I clasped the muscles on his arm. I heard him panting softly in my ear, "My wife, have pity on me." A night of absurdity. I forgot he was at an age full of vigor and not quite used to it. He wrapped his arms around my waist, the tips of his ears flushed red. I turned to meet his eyes and whispered, "Why were you crying last night?" His hand on my waist paused, and he looked away. "Nothing. It's time to get up and serve tea soon." He almost fled from the bed. This is the first time I've encountered Siet Songnan in such a situation. It's quite strange. I went with him to offer tea. My mother-in-law and father-in-law both liked me very much. My father-in-law went to handle official matters, while my mother-in-law held me back and spoke to me in private. "Just tell me straight if something isn't right in the south." His skin is thick. He's not afraid of being scolded. I nodded. Siet Songnan came over. "Mother, there's nothing to say. I'll be more careful in the future." I looked at him and smiled. The next second, a servant came in to report, "Madam, someone from the palace is here." I subconsciously thought of Jiang Shu and went to the reception hall with my mother-in-law. Fortunately, it wasn't a eunuch from Jiang Shu's side, but a palace maid. "The Empress says that she would like to have a chat with the general's young wife at Shunshe, 3 to 5 p.m. today. Young madam, your sister, consort Rong, will also be there." I forced a smile in response. "Lin Jinran, what does she want?" Following Siet Songnan back to the courtyard, I was dazed the whole way. He rubbed my head. Don't worry. I'll wait for you at the palace gate. I'm not afraid that she would harm me. I just find it strange. When I entered the palace, Lin Jinran didn't come, nor did my sister. Instead, it was Jiang Shu who arrived. His palm was wrapped in gauze. I curtsied. Jiang Shu smiled mockingly. You never used to bow to me before. I looked up and stared at him intently. A flicker of emotions I couldn't understand passed through his eyes. What brings your majesty to summon your consort? Now that you've been reborn too, why didn't you come to me? My voice was calm, because in this life, I wanted to live a different kind of life. Hardly had the words left his mouth when a sharp crack echoed. He gave a slight tug at the corner of his mouth, the Buddhist beads in his hand falling to the ground, scattering into pieces, and finally falling silent. Ahung, I could easily accuse your husband of a crime and have him imprisoned. If you return to my side, I can let bygones be bygones. I laughed. You won't, because I was too familiar with him. I knew he wouldn't give up the entire country for a bit of love. In his previous life, Xiet Songnan was a great general who had performed outstanding military service and stabilized the border regions. Even when Jiang Shu was processing memorials, he praised Xia's achievements. Your Majesty, just treat it as a new beginning, as if you never remembered. I am already married. Let us be well and safe from now on. He had a moment of panic. You're angry that I broke my promise and couldn't give you the empty title of Empress. At that moment, I was truly angered to the point of laughter. Why hadn't I noticed his arrogance before? Your Majesty, forget about it. I cannot forgive him for deliberately bringing my sister into the harem, only to give her nothing. I turned and walked towards the palace gate. Suddenly, a voice called out to me, Sister. I turned back in surprise. It was my younger sister. She hadn't lost weight and seemed to be living a leisurely life. I touched her face, my voice hoarse. Are you doing well? I'd always feared the Empress might secretly bully her because of me. She smiled brightly. I'm doing great here. The Emperor never comes. I don't have to pay respects to the Empress. And I even raised a big yellow dog. Life is comfortable. I nodded vigorously. If that's the case, I'll head out of the palace first. Okay. After exiting the palace gate, I found a peace talisman hidden in my sleeve. It must have been secretly slipped to me by my sister. Why are you smiling so happily? The moment I saw Xiet Songnan, my heart settled into place. I rushed over to hug him. I saw my sister. Xiet Songnan hugged me tightly, laughing heartily. I had no idea what he was laughing about. Early the next morning, an imperial edict arrived at the Xie mansion. The Khitans were lingering on the border, and Xiet Songnan was ordered to defend the frontier. I grabbed his hand and asked softly, How long will you be gone? He smiled, brushing my cheek gently. Not long, but in my past life, this war had lasted several years, with heavy casualties. Sorrow welled up in my heart. Take me with you. Okay, he still smiled. But there was a hint of helplessness. If you get bored while I'm away, go back to your family's home and stay with father-in-law. Alright, I don't want to. I was afraid he'd be seriously injured. Xiet Songnan, take me with you. I promise I won't get in your way. Tears were almost spilling from my eyes. He hugged me, resting his head on my shoulder. It's all right. Victory and defeat are common in war. I'm so capable, I'll definitely come back alive from the battlefield. Wait for my good news. His rough fingertips caressed my cheek. I nodded, but already had a plan in mind. Okay, later. I packed his luggage for him. That night, I clung to him. He cooperated eagerly, probably to comfort me. After he sent me back to the Rome mansion and departed for the frontier, I secretly followed his army, but before I could take a few steps, a sharp pain in the back of my neck knocked me unconscious. When I woke up again, I was lying in a carriage, with Jiang Shu sitting across from me. I tensed and moved back slightly. He didn't look at me, speaking calmly. Awake, I remained silent. He then threw me a map of the frontier, marked with military positions. I asked in shock, Are you planning to lead the army in person? Yes. Why am I here then? He picked up a cup of tea, skimming the leaves on top. The rising steam concealed his emotions. Because you're foolish. He'd long guessed I'd follow the army. I lowered my eyes. Jiang Shu, you can hate me, but don't involve Xiet Songnan in our matters. He suddenly laughed. How do you know I won't kill you? I froze. What's so good about him? I clutched the map, my mind filled with Siet Songnan's silly smile, and spoke sincerely. He never lies to me. Jiang Shu's body trembled. When he turned to look at me, his expression had returned to seriousness. But he can't give you status or power. I don't want either, I only want him. I unfolded the map, carefully recalling the details of this war from my past life. I didn't want Siet Songnan to get hurt. As I pondered, a jade pendant suddenly appeared in front of me. It was my favorite jade pendant from my past life, so beloved that I'd snuck it off Jiang Shu's dragon robe in the middle of the night. I frowned in confusion. What are you doing? He looked somewhat ingratiating. For you, your favorite jade pendant. I don't need it. You know Jinran won't live long. Don't be angry. I'll stay with you for the rest of your days. I blinked. In my past life, when Lin Jinran passed away, the crown prince was about 4 years old. If she really wouldn't live that long, and Jiang Shu only had the crown prince as his heir in this life, wouldn't my sister be able to take the crown prince and raise him? I suppressed my excitement. I don't need you to stay with me either. He stared straight at my face, trying to find any unusual emotions. Didn't you love me the most? Jiang Shu, we've long been over. Stop pestering me. A voice came from outside the carriage. Your Majesty, we've joined forces with General Xie's army. Overjoyed, I threw down a final I only like Siet Songnan and jumped off the carriage, rushing straight for Siet Songnan. Siet Songnan. When Siet Songnan saw me running over, he gently chided. Foolishness, I didn't care, clinging tightly to his arm. Not far away, Jiang Shu stood quietly, watching for who knew how long, using the memories from his past life. Jiang Shu arranged the city's defenses and formulated a battle plan. During the day, I led the women in the city to collect herbs on the mountains. At night, I squeezed into Siet Songnan's room. Everyone in the city knew I was General Xie's wife. Every time, he'd pretend to be helpless before hugging me tightly. Siet Songnan, I want to have a child. Because I loved him, I wanted to have a child with him. His expression softened, his Adam's apple rolling. Okay. But we'll wait until after this war. I smiled and nuzzled the back of his neck. With the memories from the past life, the war ended very quickly. 3 months later, the Khitans chose to sue for peace. Siet Songnan followed Jiang Shu to the negotiations. I stood on the city wall, my heart in my throat. Below, the two sides faced off. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear what was being said. Suddenly, the soldiers erupted in cheers. I hurried to the city gate. Siet Songnan and Jiang Shu were walking toward me. In the next instant, arrows flew through the air. Kill. I watched in horror as an arrow shot toward Siet Songnan. Siet Songnan. A chill swept over my entire body. The surrounding sounds turned into a buzzing. And my mind went blank. It wasn't until Jiang Shu was shot, a trickle of blood escaping his lips, that I came to my senses, rushing to Siet Songnan and hugging him tightly. Fighting erupted again outside the city wall. It turned out Jiang Shu had long ordered an ambush. Certain the Khitans would betray the agreement, Siet Songnan clutched the arrow in his shoulder, gritting his teeth to comfort me. It didn't hit a vital spot. I'm okay. Tears fell unconsciously. By the way, Your Majesty, my eyes were fixed on Siet Songnan, having long forgotten about Jiang Shu, who was also shot. I turned to look at Jiang Shu, who was coughing up blood nearby. Sensing my gaze was devoid of any affection, he clenched his sword hilt tightly, the light in his eyes fading little by little. I subtly dodged the hand he reached out to grab me with. Hurry and send for the imperial physician. Siet Songnan, I won't let anything happen to you. If you die, I'll remarry with our child in my belly. As soon as I finished speaking, the exact same words echoed in my ears, one filled with joy, the other with despair. You're pregnant. Siet Songnan hugged me joyfully, walking toward the city. Jiang Shu, however, paled, muttering in disbelief. Yes, I'm carrying our child. Siet Songnan. Jiang Shu stared at me in despair, his outstretched hand trembling slightly. You're lying to me, aren't you? But I never lie. Jiang Shu suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, biting his lip hard and staggering back half a step. How? Before he could finish, he fell to the ground with a thud. In the end, the Khitans still sued for peace. Jiang Shu remained unconscious, muttering in pain even in his sleep. The army stayed stationed at the frontier. Xiet Songnan was busy comforting the injured soldiers, until one day, Jiang Shu suddenly woke up, running barefoot into the crowd, begging me with a face full of remorse. "Ahung, I regret it, forgive me." "Okay," I shook my head, telling him firmly, "I won't forgive you." I couldn't forgive him, even if I wanted to. Jiang Shu led the army back in triumph. The journey was long, so Xiet Songnan chose to wait until my pregnancy was stable before heading home. The doctor said I'm strong, no need to worry, but he still fretted, taking care of me in every little detail. Xiet Songnan kissed my forehead, whispering softly, "My wife, I've liked you ever since you threw my handkerchief into the lake." He looked at me expectantly. "Really? I actually knew that, but I deliberately didn't say so." When Xiet Songnan and I returned to the Xie mansion, I heard that after Jiang Shu got back, he'd fainted from coughing up blood while reviewing memorials late at night. He was now extremely weak. I also heard that Lin Jinran had attended to him without rest, only to be pushed away by him. "I never should have made you empress." He had betrayed my feelings, but I didn't want him to die. The country still needed him to make many important decisions. After Xiet Songnan went to the palace, he brought back many toys for children. They're gifts from His Majesty. I shook the rattle in my hand. Xiet Songnan suddenly winked at me. "I think His Majesty likes our child very much. Would Jiang Shu like him?" After a pause, he continued, "But I'll pretend not to know." I waved Xiet Songnan over. He immediately came over, kissing me voluntarily. "Ahung, I love you." From now on, having him was enough. Jiang Shu never held another palace selection. He remained diligent and benevolent to the people, handling memorials alone late into the night. Every time he looked back at the empty palace, he seemed to see Rongheng everywhere, complaining about which concubine had offended her that day. It felt like a big hand was squeezing his heart. A dull pain spreading through his chest, Jiang Shu instinctively reached out to hold Rongheng's hand. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a wisp of air. He moved his knuckles numbly, and saw Rongheng frown again. "You rascal, Jiang Shu, you stole the sachet I embroidered for you again." "I don't care, I must find it today." Upon hearing this, Jiang Shu threw aside the memorials and began searching the palace everywhere. The eunuch who entered saw that the emperor was having another episode of his hallucinations, yawning and standing aside as usual. "Once I find it, Ahung will forgive me." "Forgive me?" Jiang Shu looked at the candle, his eyes filled with love, his voice low and lingering. "Ahung, forgive me." Okay. Rongheng blinked her bright eyes and said, "Okay, but finish the memorials first." Jiang Shu muttered as if in a dream, "Ahung forgave me, she forgave me." The eunuch, startled awake, didn't react much. The guards heard this sentence almost every night. After all, by day, the emperor would be back to normal.